Everyone, T-Sibs here with you. It is LG AHLPSN this week. Episode number 2. Vibes, Dead Soul with me tonight. Again, talking everything AHLPSN after week 2. And again, thanks for joining us today on another Friday evening. Hopefully you're going to have a nice weekend and enjoy it. We've got some decent weather in the Northeast right now, and we're hoping that that'll continue on. But for now, it's the three of us bringing you PSN this week. Vibes, a busy week for you. I know you've been wheeling and dealing and going crazy in the in the Discord chat for management. A lot of guys making a lot of deals. It's been a busy week for management, huh?
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, I tried to trade my boss today, and he wasn't having it. He looked at me like I was crazy. But yeah, it's been nuts, man. A lot of trades going on, and a lot of people wheeling and dealing, talking, a whole lot of chatter. I feel like, I don't know, it's way elevated than it used to be. It's just been a lot of trade talk.
There's certainly a lot of talk going on in the NHL as well with trades. You know, I'm no longer in the AHL chat, so I have no idea what's going on down there. But I know looking at some of the trades, it looks like it's pretty busy as usual. A lot of teams always looking after week 1 or 2 to kind of make some adjustments, maybe sometimes a little too soon, and other times, it's something that's essential they need. But yeah, it's shaping up to be a little busy to start the last couple of weeks here.
And that's what I'm always weary about that, the first couple of weeks. And again, I think we've talked about this before. With Tucson a couple of seasons ago, we made a lot of trades, and we kept on making trades. And I could see that happening. I don't know. I think there's a period where making a lot of trades is a better situation. You want to give guys a couple of weeks, I don't know, and then maybe after 3 weeks or so, 2-3 weeks, you try and then figure out what you need to do. If you need to move guys, if you got troublemakers, that's one thing. You want to get rid of them as soon as possible. But I don't know, Vibes. I feel like I've seen a lot of names in the Discord chat, guys going out for trade that or going on the block that are known, that are, I thought good players, and I don't know if it's because the talent level's gotten better overall, and maybe they don't dominate the same. Has their game gone away from them? Or do they not get along with players now? I don't know if it's all of that or some of that. Are you seeing the same thing, or is it just management panicking after week 2?
I think there's a few guys that are shit in the bed. I tend to be pretty cool, calm, and collected, and I just kind of let things take shape, but even I have made an uncharacteristic amount of trades early on here, and I think some of that maybe ties back into the bidding where bidding was kind of first of all, I have an asshole for an owner, and he completely screwed me over recently, and
really?
and he's made me make some adjustments, but aside from that, no, I'm just kidding. He's an excellent human being. I love him to death. But I've had to make some adjustments, and bidding was thin, and I think that I can't really speak for everyone else, but I could make an assumption and say that maybe a few guys just sort of took a chance on certain people, and it may not be panning out, so people are jumping the gun a little bit. I mean, I know with me, usually I could see it right away whether or not a player is going to work out. There's a difference between a player just has had a bad week and he needs a few more games versus a player is just not going to work out. And if it's on that level of just not working out, you got to jump in and do what you got to do.
Yep, that's it's always circumstantial. It's there's always going to be different situations like that. I know I've run into every single one you can probably think of, and early on when you see trades like that, a lot of the time it does come down to things like people have taken chances on others that maybe they don't know. Maybe some of these guys they have a history that you don't know about. That's come up with me before. It could be a number of things, but the earlier you catch these things, the better in a lot of these cases. Some of the cases you can fix them as you go along, but if it's an attitude situation or maybe a scheduling thing, it's something that you want to try and get fixed right away. But it's always interesting to kind of see some of these teams, especially the ones where you kind of were banking on being very good. You see some of the teams that have some good players, and then maybe they just didn't have a very good start, and you kind of wonder why. But there's always things that we don't all know about that happen on teams. So it's it's early on, but the sooner you get onto this stuff, the better for the rest of the season for your team.
I mean, each situation is different. Like, for example, I can, highlight a situation on my team right now where, so like last week I got rid of Puck Zone right away, and that was because I just saw that it wasn't going to work. Puck Zone was the guy that put up a lot of points, and he can score. He can definitely, put up. But it just, and with all due respect to him, not as good as his numbers suggest, if you would ask me. And then you have guys who are kind of struggling right now on my team, such as K-Field and Bear. And it's Bear and Arctic, by the way. And I wouldn't even think about trading them right now. It's because there's certain things that you look for. And I mean, I think once you're a manager and you have a certain eye for things, you'll know what I'm talking about. So, like, some guys you want to get rid of right away and others you don't.
And I guess, like you said, if you see, if you're seeing something happening and you say, okay, I could see that there's a chemistry issue. Maybe he had a player with him last year that helped him out tremendously in being successful. I kind of feel like the thing that gets you to push somebody out the door quickest of any of them is whether or not they are blending with the rest of the team, whether they're causing any issue, whether they are trying to push around the management a little bit. You can kind of tell that, and I think that's a talent that maybe not a lot of guys in management necessarily have, but I think plenty of them do. Look, I think the most successful teams last year, if you got a chance to talk to the GMs and the AGMs, you could tell right away that they're the kind of guys who understand how much that means to a team, how much that chemistry means. And in the end, you look at Stockton, and I know from Hershey, we had that. We had, we all got along well. We kidded around a lot. We just were able to support each other pretty well, and I know the guys in Stockton were the same way, and I think it goes a long way. And if you can get that poison out of the locker room, like you said, Vibes, if you can tell right away somebody is going to be an issue, there's no point in waiting and trying to give that person time. I think, like you said, if you know someone's talented and they're not having a good first week or two, yeah, that's what you stick with. But I think the bigger issues that you get rid of right away in week 1 and week 2 are the guys who, usually a problem for the team, or you could just tell, like you said, just aren't going to blend in and work well with the other players. And I think that those are the guys that go week 1 and week 2 if you're doing this the right way. I think you give the good players with a good attitude a chance to come along. Even if you wanted to trade them, why would you sell them when they're low? You want to sell high if you got one good player and you need some other slots filled in. That's where you wait for that guy to start going off in week 4, week 5, and you make the trade before the deadline, and you get some players back that fill out the roster better for you. And I don't know. I looked at a lot of these trades, and I'm saying, okay, you guys are just shuffling, deck chairs, right, on the Titanic. It doesn't really matter. You're trading the same head case for this head case, or this left wing with this talent for another left wing that's about the same talent. I don't know. I haven't seen anything that's been really like, oh wow, that's really going to help somebody at this point.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. I mean, a lot of these trades, and again, I don't want to like take any shots at anybody, but a lot of times, like when I see these trades happening in my head, I I just picture like a bunch of like monkeys in a cage just flinging shit at one another. You know what I mean? Because that's
Yeah.
basically what it is. It's like, hey, you take my shit. Okay, well, you take my shit. And that's what a lot of the trades are. It's just a constant revolving door of shit. And I mean, unless you have some sort of plan in your mind, to change things, then I guess that's all it's going to stay, and it's just going to be an endless cycle of poop.
Well, especially early on, and not having that patience in some cases, and then in some cases being able to see early on that this person is just not going to work out for what you want. And talent and skill aside, team attitude and availability come right up at the top. You need to have that, and the attitude is the key. It really is. You can have the best players on your team, and if you guys don't feel like a team, if you don't play like a team, you're not going to survive. It's very rare that you would. I just don't. With the way this league kind of runs and it's been going, and it's so much more fun for everybody. And when everybody kind of gets onto the same page, and if you're winning or losing, and if you can still have fun and still do well together, you're doing well. Obviously, everybody wants to win. That's the key, but it helps to be able to have that kind of strong team presence early on too. And if you can get rid of the guys that don't really fall into that category early, then that's gonna do nothing but help.
Usually, I mean, I can't lie. Maybe it's my subconscious, but in a way, I've kind of gone back and forth here over the past couple minutes, trying to figure out whether or not this is a show or if this is some sort of an intervention on your part. Because, yeah, I'm just gonna call it what it is right now. I mean, the Moose are basically hospice patients. We have so much cancer on the team right now. But I mean, I feel like I figure that I know how to deal with it, and what I've done is I've sort of isolated it. And sometimes it's like I know it sounds crazy, but sometimes the way to deal with something like that is to just find 5 different types of cancer and then just put them all in the same room together and just let the 5 pieces of cancer just be cancerous, because then it all sort of cancels out and it's okay. So that's kind of what I've done. And in case you guys haven't been able to tell yet, I'm talking about GoHawks 48 and Nylander and a few other guys. Yeah, they could be cancerous, but for me, they sort of work out, and I don't mind them. They do what they do, and as long as I can keep a line around them that can deal with them and be okay with them, they win games and they're good players. So that's
Well, I guess
how
you
I
guys
feel so far.
can certainly be the test subject moving forward to see, because I know that one of your main things is not liking to trade much, and even though you've gone against the grain about your own kind of rule, we'll see how this works out. So I'm curious to see how this cancer team works.
Well, it's really interesting because I know you what you value is the skill level from these guys, and you know that if they could, look, we could sit here and rattle off a list of names that we would all say they're really good players if they could just stop bitching, if they could just stop. Cursing out their line mates, if they could just stop saying, Goldie, what the fuck is wrong with you? If they could just stop that and just play the game, they would be fantastic, and they wouldn't get traded every other week. And I don't know why these guys don't get it. I don't know how many times you have to get traded in 4 or 5 seasons before you realize that people think you're talented, but they can't stand your fucking attitude. I don't get why that is such a problem. And I understand you wanted to try and rehabilitate these guys and give them a shot to to make their wares in the league. But it amazes me how some of these guys just don't get it.
Sometimes I sit and I ask myself, is it really worth the fact that I'm going to deal with heartburn probably for the rest of the night? And, I probably could be developing some type of esophageal cancer myself or something with all the acid reflux and shit that I deal with from all the stress and aggravation. But I'm the type of person where, see, like, this is where I differ from certain people, mainly Dead Soul. Like he likes to have, a peaceful sort of environment, and he likes to have, good people and stuff like that. And me, I mean, I do in a perfect world, I do as well. But ultimately, for me, the number one thing is winning, and that's what separates me from a lot of people. Is I will sacrifice that sort of serenity and peace, and let's hold hands and sing "Kumbaya" as we skip through the forest. I will sacrifice all that for a winning team,
Oh, you
and
mean,
I think that right now, sometimes cancer wins.
or it gets fourth placed in their division instead of first?
For now, but it's a long season.
Well, hey, you know what?
I'm just throwing
If,
stones.
well, you can't throw too many. They, 8-2 in their last 10. The Moose have been playing well, and especially this week have had a hell of a week. So maybe it's starting to get some chemistry.
We had a bad first week,
Yeah.
and it's like I tell everyone, look, I don't really like to, kind of like I told you guys in season 2, I like to keep, GM vibes and radio media personality vibes separate. But real quick, just stepping into the GM vibes role, is I put the whole league on notice, a long time ago. It's a long season. And I know that Cleveland and all them have that little gang thing and shit, but my saying is, what is a gang to a mob? And that's what the Moose are. We're a mob, and we're coming for everybody. And I told everyone a long time ago that this is your yard, and we're gonna take it. But that being said, I'd like to step away from that and just maybe put the focus on one of these other teams here.
Yeah, because actually, I did want to kind of go into some notable teams, and well, I won't spoil it here, but yeah, Moose were going to come up, and not because of any other reason other than the fact that you guys did do very well this week. But anyhow, yeah, go ahead there, Sibs, if you want to lead us to the next section of things.
Well, we have a couple of weeks under our belts here, and so I think it's time to start talking about what teams are doing. And I had to check to make sure that I was looking at season 5 and not season 4 in the standings, because I'm seeing a lot of the same teams up there. The Marlies, have been tremendous so far. Cleveland, Iowa, Charlotte, all in the Western. The Marlies and Syracuse and Binghamton, again, sort of a repeat of last season. In the Eastern Atlantic, Hershey is 11-3, but they're already 9 points over Springfield in that division. Springfield, Providence, Bridgeport, Lehigh, all 3 points separating those 4 teams. So already Hershey starting to push out a little bit. And again, like you said, Western Central, Cleveland, Iowa, Checkers, Moose, Admirals, Grand Rapids, 9 points within each other. I mean, again, another grouping. We'll talk more about the Western Central in a bit, but the Western Pacific, San Jose and Ontario, 2 teams who, I don't know if I would have thought that they necessarily would have been there right away, but you got to give them management a credit for putting together a decent squad and getting them to play this well right away, this quickly. And, it looked like it would be a closer race early on here, but they have a nice jump on Texas of 11 points and Stockton 12 back. The Heat have played better. They had a 5-5 last 10, but they played better this week. We'll talk more about them as well. But, some of the teams on the rise, you're talking about Iowa, Toronto, Hershey, Syracuse, Binghamton. They all lost players, but they still wound up, bringing back some of the guys from last season. But, I don't know how much of a factor that is, but let's just talk about a couple of teams that have been really interesting to look at that are doing well. I like the Marlies, and again, I'm going to talk like a goaltender. Mellow and Watermelon have just been tremendous. It's a Watermelon 9-0 so far this season, and Mellow again just being Mellow, and hopefully he could stick it out for a whole season. and be part of this team. But they have solid goaltending and good defense. Oh, 80 goals for, 31 against, which is easily the least amount of goals that anyone has given up in the league. And 80 is up there with one of the top teams scoring. So everything going right for Toronto so far in the Eastern North. And even with that, they still have to deal with a couple of good teams in Syracuse and Binghamton. But let's talk more about the Western Central. Let's get back there right now. And just because Vibes has seen a lot of these teams, he's been scouting them, he's played them somewhat. Does it remind you a lot of last season, what you're seeing right now? Is it, are these same teams going to be there 5-6 weeks from now and still in the playoff contention?
It does, and you know what? It's going to be even tighter. It's going to be even tighter this season. I think you have maybe 6 teams that are going to be right there when this is all coming down to the wire. Maybe even 7. So this is going to be a really, really tight division. The Monsters right now leading the way, but pretty soon it'll be the Moose. But for now, it's the Monsters, and we have the Iowa Wild and the Checkers. I think the Checkers are playing above their head a little bit right now. I think that the Griffins are a really good team. I would definitely keep an eye on the Griffins. But even Milwaukee and Chicago as well. I think the weakest team in this division again is Rockford. And they were pretty weak last year. I think they're kind of weak again this season. But the rest of these teams, this is one hell of a division to come back into as far as the management circuit is concerned, because this is going to be tight.
I still have nightmares of that division. It's not a fun division to be in, and unfortunately, I got to get stuck in the same division up in the NHL, which doesn't seem to be any different than this one. In fact, it's a little bit more hectic and crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm fooling around when I take shots at teams and say that we're coming for you and stuff like that, because in reality, this is not GM vibes. This is radio media personality guy vibes. This division is ridiculous, and I mean, I could easily say that we're gonna end up in first, but I could also see us ending up in 7th. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Sure. This is just the competition in this division is unparalleled, if you ask me. Even more so than last season. It's a better division than last season, and by far the best division in the entire league. Am I going to say the best team is in this division? I don't know. That remains to be seen. But as far as just overall skill level and competition level, this is by far the best division. It's going to remain the best division all season long.
Certainly interesting to see all these same, 4 teams, 5 teams, pretty much where they have been in the past. So it's just pretty wild that it actually has turned out this way again. It's nice to see in the Western Pacific these changes here to have, teams like the Barracuda and the Reign close to the top here, and with, some pretty good leads there with, behind, with third place behind them, like 11 points and on for the other teams that are only like 1 point away from each other. It's really, and it's the same thing with the Eastern Atlantic. They have like, a pretty big gap from first to second, and then it's a 9-point gap there. Then it's like 1 point for every spot after that. So it's interesting that those divisions are having some good competition as well. It's just they're obviously not really winning quite as much as some of the other teams here in the Western Central as well as the Eastern North there, because it looks like that's where a lot of the stronger teams are.
The West Central is nuts, man. I don't know what it is with the Western Central, and it carries over to the NHL, or I should say it's very similar in the NHL, because I remember I looked the other night and I was like, oh, wow, look at that, looking at the Winnipeg Jets, because they're pretty much the only team that I care about up there. But I was looking at the Jets and I say, wow, look at them. They're in 7th place. They're really struggling. And then I think I looked the very next day and they were in 1st. I'm just like, what the is going on here? You know what I mean? It's just so tight, man. You lose a game, you're in 7th. You win a game, you're in 1st. It's crazy.
Yeah, there's a 4-point gap between 7th and 1st. and there's only a 1 point gap between 1 and 2, and then there's 4 teams tied for 21 points. So yeah, it's a little bit hectic there too, and it's definitely something where it's just must-win games every single time, especially divisional games. That's where next week is going to be very important for not only our teams, but I know for your teams, because I believe I haven't looked at the schedule yet, but I'm assuming you guys are going to be going back to your divisions as well.
Yeah, we have a lot of inside the division matchups next week, and a lot of really tough ones. I know we play the Monsters. I know we play the Wild. And then a few, I think, inside the conference, but not the division. But it's a tough week again. I mean, it just seems like every week here. I mean, the first week one was tough, and then this week was a little bit easier, again, with all due respect to the Eastern Conference. But, some lighter teams out east, and, now we're back in the West again, and the West is going to be tough. It's just crazy, man. And I swear, it's kind of like... as far as the Western Central is concerned, it's like some unsolved mystery, like Bermuda Triangle, hocus pocus stuff that's going on, because you have to say, what is it with the Western Central? Because I feel like every season, they are just above everyone else, and it's just crazy.
Well, the Western, and we talked about the Western Division, and I know is Pasta's thinking that I'm going to talk about the Monsters, but no, Pasta. We're going to talk about your team. What is going wrong with the Stockton Heat? 8-9-1 so far this season. Now they played better this week, but they've got guys. They got Loops, Biggie, Pasta back. Ryan 9010. User pick. They've got a bunch of really solid players on this team, and obviously got a good chunk of their team back. They've got Borje Salming in net, who looked good the other night against us. The deal maker I have not seen yet, but 5-2-1 so far in the season. So, what have we seen so far with Stockton? Is this typically what happens to a winner? They start off the season still celebrating from last season, and they not taking it seriously enough.
Calder Cup hangover, 100%. It's really the only logical explanation. No, I mean, as far as they're concerned, they're starting to turn it around now. Slow start. I mean, honestly, I feel like the better teams start off slow. Mm-hmm. I know we've started off slow, and we're still ramping up, you know what I mean? And I feel like the better teams sometimes do that. Kind of like there's one really crazy, smart, intelligent sports guy. He said that the season doesn't start until week 3. And, whoever that was, I have to agree with him, because he's... He's dead on. It's really true. The season starts this week, boys. You know what I mean? So we'll see what happens at the end of this week. This is like week 1, if you'd ask me, and this is when we really get going. And it seems like Stockton is kind of just getting going now. I don't think Stockton's defense is as strong as it was last season, but they're going to be right there. You don't have that sort of a team, that sort of a powerhouse team, and then just have so many guys return, and then just completely, shit yourself. That's just not the way it works. So they'll be there. Are they as good as last season? I don't know. I think that remains to be seen. I think they're a little bit weaker on the back end, but they'll get it together, and I think they are getting it together now.
It was certainly surprising to me to see them start out this slow. 17 points in the next, in these last 2 weeks here. It's definitely a lot slower start than I thought they would have had. The Barracuda playing the way that they are, it seems like more of what I would have thought the Stockton Heat to be starting out like. So I think you're right. I think these guys are just off to a slow start. I think these win streaks might come. Maybe I'll be eating my words later, but. These guys aren't a team to just count out at all, and if any teams take them lightly, they're going to be paying for that for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Pasta, just to give his numbers in 6 games, 12 goals, 11 assists, +9, but his record is 3-3. So clearly, he's not playing any defense. Typical
Helping out the team there.
typical winger. He's just hanging out the red line waiting for a pass, I'm sure. We'll have to watch his games and find out exactly what's going on. But no, I agree. Stockton, look, too much experience, too much talent. It's early. They're going to be there. I don't think there's any question about it.
They'll be there. Yeah, they will. They're not going to win, but they'll be there.
Well, I guess this might be a decent time to kind of quickly bring up a couple of the notable teams. I mean, you guys already kind of touched on one of them at least, or I guess you did kind of touch on both, but I just wanted to really quickly get into the Grand Rapid Griffins, who actually went 8-1-1 in their last 10 games. They they had three wins in week 1. They scored 46 goals compared to last week's 29 goals. They allowed 23 goals versus last week 1's 39 goals. And this week they had 7 wins with an 8-win streak, which was snapped on Wednesday versus Springfield. So, that could very well be another team in the Western Central to really watch out for and not take lightly. Because, I mean, maybe this was just a really good week against, like you said, some maybe more weaker teams, their vibes. But maybe this is a sign that, you know what, these guys had a bad first week, but maybe they're turning it around. Maybe there's somebody that's...
No, the Griffins, they're going to be there, man. I mean, they're a solid team, and they're going to be that team that just won't go away. That's who the Griffins are going to be. And, I mean, you have 2 teams that are kind of like that right now in the Western Central, and the Griffins and then the Milwaukee Admirals. But both of those teams are going to be teams that hang on and just don't go away. Ultimately, I guess I don't want to get into predictions and things like that just yet, but ultimately I think that maybe they're on the outside looking in, but they're not going away anytime soon. And just because they're on the outside looking in doesn't mean they won't find themselves on the inside. You know what I mean? It's a very good possibility, and anyone to count either of those teams out would be stupid.
Yeah, I think it'll be easier to tell in a couple more weeks to really see how things pan out. And the other team that was notable was, as you mentioned already about yourselves, was the Moose, and I only mentioned them because you guys did just have those 3 wins the previous week. This last 10 games, you went 8-2-0, so 7-2 on the week, which is a really good week. Congrats, by the way, with that. Scored 42 goals this week compared to last week's 31, so you're up in that section there. But you did have 10 goals scored in one game last week of those 31 goals. So that's a pretty big jump from the 31 to 42 goals if you look at it that way. And then you also had 28 goals against this week compared to last week's 29. So that I'm sure could probably go down a little bit as well.
Yeah, that could come down a little bit, I guess. But, hands down, best team in the division, without a doubt. And, I say big things to the Moose. No, I mean, yeah, we're listen. We had a slow start too, and we're still figuring ourselves out. And I think it's going to be a process. Look, I don't think anyone's going to walk away with this division, and certainly not us. But it's going to be a process. It's going to be a battle. It's going to be tough, and it's going to be close. And all we can really hope on for right now is to just just stay in it, because there's some good teams in that division.
And how about, the top 2 in your division, Cleveland and Iowa? A lot talked about with Cleveland last season about the trade deadline and bringing down guys from Columbus, and certainly a lot of people really railed them for it, and it did not work out for them. We've seen in other seasons where players have come down and have contributed tremendously. I think the season before that, in the finals with Charlotte and St. John's, we saw, I think, Schneider come down. Was that or was it the series before that? I think it was maybe the series before at Rochester. But we've seen guys come down like Schneider in goal and just not complain, not say anything, and just play spectacularly and help his team to a championship. And then we see guys come down last season who, caused more disruption than anything else. But Cleveland this season, they come back with Big Freeze, Sieg, and T-Ball as their management. So some stability there. and then you look at the rest of the lineup. Hunter has been doing very well in net for them. Gauchi for days. I've seen and played with Austin and Adam D. Good players. Adam D is 4-0 so far in the season for them. They just made a deal and got Puck U right from you guys. So they've got plenty of talent on this team, and they've reloaded and different management up top. So you hope and you wonder and you hope that Big Freeze gets the ability to be able to just do what he needs to do with his team and run with his players. And so far he seems like I've talked to him, and when I've seen him in chat, he seems like a much more serious manager this season and probably out to prove something. And so far this year, they put together a good squad, and they are just they're tearing it up so far. 9-1 in their last 10. Tied with Iowa at 30 points, and they're a team with that management. No offense to you guys, but I'd like to see them do well, just because they had a team going really well before that trade deadline, and just had to deal with taking these guys back down. I'd like to see them run with the players that they put together and see how far they go. And so far after 2 weeks, they're right back on top again. And we'll see how long this lasts and how much they tinker with the team. But I hope for Freeze's sake that they leave him alone and let him do what he wants to do with it.
Yeah, and I mean, Freeze, I really didn't know much of him as far as a manager was concerned up until today, actually. I always liked him as a person. I always thought he was kind of cool and laid back, and, I always appreciated hearing what he had to say. And then today, actually dealing with him and making that trade, I'm actually a fan of Big Freeze. I like him a lot. Yeah. I like the way that he does business. I like the way he handles himself, and there will definitely be good things for the Monsters as long as he's there. And it was definitely a pleasure dealing with him, and I think that we got a really good trade for both teams done today. Mm-hmm. Two really good players moving in different ends. You know what I mean? And I'm definitely a big Freeze fan, and again, kind of like a split personality here. This is the media guy speaking up and telling you that I'm a fan of his, and but in the management side, not so much.
Well, he's done a really good job again putting another good team together so far, and he does get all the credit because he's under new management in the ownership department up there in the NHL. So it's not like as far as I can see and what I do know, I mean, I'm pretty sure he has pretty much full control over his team. I'm not sure that he had any kind of meddling or any kind of help. I'm pretty sure this is him just doing his thing, and he's done a good job of it.
No, he does. I think it's kind of a similar situation like with you and I, where he's got full reign. It's his team and everything like that. But I think they probably have a decent line of communication, such as you and I do, to where I'm sure they're probably talking about things and things like that. You know what I mean? But yeah, I'm pretty sure other than that, he's got full reign. And let's keep talking about the Monsters. Huh? Let's see if we can get Pasta to throw up in his mouth.
But hey, by the way, you're listening to the Cleveland Monsters Radio Network. It's all Monsters all the time.
No Cleveland.
and we mentioned Hunter. He 6-2 on the season, 2.89 goals against, 79.3 save percentage. So again, he's been a solid goaltender. Last season. With the Condors, certainly did well for them, and I think a nice pickup by the Monsters to have him backstop for them, and again another player that could help them get there, and as you say, we'll see how they get there.
Their other goalie is going to do more of the heavy lifting.
Can we just take it from the top and just touch on every single player on the Monsters real quick? Can we just start it from the top again and just run through the whole roster?
How about those Bears, though? How about those Bears? Let's talk about the Bears. How are they doing? They got 26 points.
I really thought they'd fall apart after they lost me, but apparently I was not the linchpin of that team. So they still got Moose back there. He's a stud. Bob Swagger, Chowski. Again, some of the same players that you saw last year. Plus, they added Maddens as one of their AGMs. Babada's still there. Again, a lot of good quality players. Nismo is still there. He was one of my favorite players on that team because, he just did his job. He had fun with it. He didn't get heated. He just had fun playing the game, and I love seeing him on this team. Duelis is the other goaltender on that team, and certainly an upgrade for me. 5-1-1 so far in the season, and he's got a ton of talent. So this team, now with Puck Zone, we'll see how he blends in with them. I think
they were close last season, and now that they got rid of that Sibbs bum, I mean, they got a legitimate shot, right? So
they got a lot of right wings by the looks of it here. That's quite a few to juggle with, but
Fetcher's another good player. D. Mitch, I mean, we all know a lot of these guys on here, and it's I tell you what, Bob is one of my favorites. He's an amazing GM. He tries to keep he has a good balance of being able to talk to his players, but also commanding some respect from them as well. That's a hard thing to do in this league, to balance that, and he does that really, really well. And he's one of the best managers I've seen, and certainly one of the best I've played for. And even though I don't play for them, I still wish them well because they're all good guys, and they again they're doing what they need to do in their division. There is other talent there, but they haven't needed to do too much yet, and they're starting to pull away a little bit. We'll see if that keeps happening the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, because that's a pretty good lead that they have so far. I mean, we all have seen these kind of leads drop off at points, but I mean, if they can maintain this and actually just put a little bit more distance between, these other teams, then that's going to be a lot more helpful for them. But it looks like, I mean, if you compare all the other divisions, it just looks like kind of maybe the weaker one in terms of the remainder teams. Not that any of those teams are just bad teams, but it's just, at least in the last couple of weeks, it's just interesting to see all these other teams that have like 20 plus 30 points and stuff. It's quite a bit of teams out there that are doing significantly better. But again, it's so early. It's a couple of weeks. I'm curious to see how this division kind of pans out within 2 more weeks and see if maybe some of these guys surpass some of the teams that are doing pretty hot right now.
Yeah. I don't know, but in all these divisions, I feel like there's, the upper end teams and then there's a drop off, which kind of doesn't really exist in the West and Central. I don't want to keep going back to the West and Central, but I feel like there's no drop off in that division. But like with the Hershey Bears in that division, like I feel like there's kind of a drop off. I think it's like 1 or 2 teams on the top, and then it kind of sort of falls off the cliff a little bit there.
Yeah, it does though. At least for now. I mean, we'll see if these guys can catch up. But I mean, to be honest, I don't know. I haven't looked at all the rosters yet for that division of these. The Eastern Atlantic, Eastern North either, but without a doubt, like the Western Central seems to be the closest one, with the Eastern North being kind of close as well there. I think those two are going to be the ones that are going to be teams going to be up and down, just taking each other's spots all throughout, and these gaps that we see in the other teams are going to be a little bit more interesting to kind of see how they pan out as well.
Yeah, the Phantoms surprised me. They started off well in week 1. But 1-8 this past week. It's and you've got goaltenders like Tyler Lokey and Joe Kahn who are pretty proven. I love Tyler. I know I know you guys know him pretty well too. Good guy, good player. 3-7-2 so far this season, and that's that's just not what happens to him. So they've run into some issues in this week. It's tough to see a team that I thought was in pretty good shape when the season started have such a bad week. So that that is a huge dip for them, and it's a tough one to take in such a short season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like sometimes I see things a lot differently than people because I knew they were playing way over their head. This is a mediocre team, maybe fighting for a playoff spot, if that. But I knew right out of the gate they were playing over their head, and I don't think the team is that strong. And I'm sorry, I'm just going to call it like I say it. But I kind of knew that this is more along the lines of where they belong and where they'll be. And then Tyler is, I think Dead Soul will attest to this. I don't know. Maybe he'll tell me I'm crazy, but I think Tyler is kind of like he's a very volatile goaltender in the sense that he's either really good or really bad. You know what I mean? Like I don't really feel like there's any in between with him. I feel like he has the capability of, kind of like we saw last season during the playoffs, where he was just. I don't think there was a goalie better than him,
Right.
honestly. And but then he's got these lulls where he's just sort of subpar really, or maybe average, slightly below average, But yeah, he's kind of hit or miss.
He reminds me of kind of a Lundqvist. Sometimes he can have a bit of a slower start, but then once he's on fire, he doesn't stop. But I don't completely agree with your assessment with him. I mean, when I play with him later at night, when he's very tired after a long day's work, yeah, maybe he could be a little bit more what you're describing. But ultimately, when it comes to his game time for league, he's usually pretty spot on. And to see him start with a bit of a struggle, it might be just him having some off games, or it could just be obviously some defensive breakdowns that certainly happens. I mean, look at the defense throughout the league this season; it's pretty thin. I know it's something we're going to probably discuss at some point, but I mean, it's pretty crucial for teams to really be able to help each other out as a unit defensively, especially this season, given that there's just not terribly a lot of signups when it comes to players in general, but also the fact that when it comes to the elite talent, I mean, the NHL swallowed up most of what was there, pretty much all of it, and then you've got the good players and some of the great players that have kind of spread out throughout NHL and AHL to a degree, but they're just so thin for the AHL right now. And if you're not getting that team defense or defense at all, you're gonna sink, no matter how good you are in net.
Well, I used to think that Dead Soul knew what he was talking about. And then he disagreed with me, and now I know that he has no clue what the hell he's talking about.
That's fine. That's all good.
I wanted to talk a little bit also about the Eastern North. We talked about Toronto quickly, and we see Syracuse and Binghamton, and Utica's still there. Look at those three teams. They're keeping pace with each other in the last 10. Three of them are 7-3. Toronto 7-2-1. So again, I think we're going to have a solid run there. We went against the West this week, the Albany Devils, and came out 5-4. 5-4. Well, 5-4 we came out, and so I was kind of surprised that we did that well. I really thought that some of these teams were going to be a little more difficult to deal with, but we played well against them. We actually hit more of the. I want to say we hit more of the Western Central, but I have to look back at the score at the games that we played this week. But we starting to turn the corner a little bit. Still making some moves, and it's you have these guys, and you hope that there's going to be chemistry right away. And I think again we've kind of felt that we've got some good quality players who early on were having chemistry problems. I think we made more moves this week that had to do with, we had some extra in some positions, and we needed to shore up another position. And I think that's going to start happening in the next week or two as well. But Toronto, Syracuse, Binghamton, Utica, all three of these teams, again, showing a lot early on here. And Utica, again, you look at their team and their roster. We talk about having some issue with getting guys for the summer league, but I'm still seeing a lot of talent out there, and the roster that G-Pig and Ito put together for this team is a pretty damn good one. With I call So What being a solid goaltender for them. Dirk Nowitzki's been around for a while. Crazy, certainly had a good season in season 4. Trouble Kid, some other players here that have put up some numbers over the year. Jimbo as well. But Utica, could wind up being a bit of an issue for this division as well. I don't think. Again, I think this is close to mimicking what we see in the Western Central, where we've got some good rosters in at least half of that division who may fight for it the whole way. And Toronto, again, looks like the team that everyone's going to have to chase after.
Toronto's a good team. They're gonna be good all season. Don't expect them to go away anytime soon.
Not
And
at all.
they got off to they had a little bit of a head start because of their management. And I feel like a lot of times, obviously teams that have the better players as management kind of have like a leg up on everyone else because obviously it's a free contract and a free good player, as opposed to the Moose where they got to deal with me as their manager. But they had a leg up, and I don't expect them to go away anytime soon. They're going to be good.
Yeah, I mean, when I was doing my homework here and just kind of catching up with everything that's been going on for this week, I saw right away that the Eastern, North, and Western Pacific specifically were going to be shaping up to be the most competitive and tough divisions, and very hard to hold on and to gain the leads within their divisions. So I think these are the ones that are going to be the ones to watch, to see a lot of maybe some of these teams switching it around. I don't really see the Marlies losing that lead maybe to the Crunch, but the Marlies this season just look phenomenal. Their goaltending is outstanding. I mean, these guys lead all the goaltending right now so far with a 1.72 goals against average, and that's pretty crazy. I mean, with only 31 goals against in 18 games, like that's tough, to go up against a team like that. Just won't let things, won't let that puck pass them. And I mean, they've got the defense, they've got the offense, they've got the goaltending, they've got it all. And I think they're probably the deepest team. I dare say, probably the deepest team in this league right now.
Yep, they got it all. They're a good team. I mean, they are essentially the girl with a fat ass, and then you talk to her and you find out she's got a 6-figure job too. They've got everything going for them.
Wow. Okay.
So they're going to be good, and definitely don't expect them to go away. That's for damn sure.
Well, I did kind of put out a little bit of a list. I was able to kind of just break everything down and just have a little top six thus far. And so far, obviously the Marlies leading with 15-2-1. And like I said, with the 31 goals against, 80 goals for. Monsters are 15-3-0, goals for 78, goals against 47. They have 2.61 goals against average. The Wild went 15-3-0 with a 2.5 goals against average. Barracuda 14-3-1 with a 2.67 goals against average. And they actually are scoring the most right now with 87 goals for. The Reign 14-3-1, and they've had a 2.67 goals against average, and the Crunch at 13-5-0 with 2.22 goals against average. So all those top teams have one pretty good thing in common, where the scoring is low against them, and the scoring that they're getting is quite high, with the exception of the Crunch, which is a little interesting because they've had 59 goals and a nice lower 40 goals against. But if they start scoring a lot more, watch out for the Crunch, because they're going to be a real pain in the ass, more so than they are now.
It's funny. I really didn't think we would see some patterns this early, but I think when you look at what these teams are doing so far, and you look at the rosters, and there's one thing that I think stands out that I think we all have talked about and have all seen, and that is, we've talked a little bit about it, and that's seeing a lot of players from Season 4 returning to their teams. I think that's part of it. Is there anything else that's lending to a lot of these Season 4 teams doing well again? Is it just about players coming back or management coming back? Or is it a couple of other things that are going on that are leading to these teams, once again rising to the top so far?
No, it is. It's the players returning, and it's the management returning, and it's the fact that some of these re-signs that we saw early on, we said to ourselves, man, that's a lot of money to pay. And then you went into bidding, and
right.
you suddenly realize that you're paying $3-4 million for, a guy that I would consider, and I'm not talking about anyone in particular, but it's $3-4 million for a very mediocre average player. You know what I mean? And you're spending $3 million on him. So suddenly, these 3 and 4 mil re-signs seem like, I mean, the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that has a lot to do with it. So yeah, I think it's a lot of the players returning, and then it's a lot of the management returning.
Yeah, I think it's probably different for a couple of the teams, but for the majority, I think of the ones that are doing the best, it's certainly the managing experience, the guys coming back, and the re-signs without a doubt, and of course, some good bidding tactics and just being able to, in some cases have the luxury of having some returning players. But teams like the Wild had a lot of turnover too. So I mean, they had some returning guys, but they did lose quite a few players that, and especially on their decor there, that's changed up. So I mean, to see teams like that still be able to formulate a really good team all together, to be able to start the way that they have and continue the success that they've had is pretty crazy to see. But it does show that it helps to have experienced guys come in and have those re-signs available.
Yeah, I mean, again, they've got some good players on that team, but you can't lose Ryan was here. I don't care, it was a trade. I don't care what you get back from him. He was going to wind up being in the NHL anyway, but because he's that good. But either way, when you lose a player like that one way or another, it's a huge loss for your team. If they could have held on to him, man, they would be an early favorite to go right back with Stockton again in the in semifinals, I would think. And but that's a huge loss for them. But again, Ager has shown that he's he gets his teeth into being a manager, and he doesn't pull any punches. He does what he needs to do, and he's got Be Nice with him and Pitt Pens, and so he's got some good players surrounding him in management, and then he's gone ahead and got some good performers as well. I played with Crisis. I played with Cap, with Rixer. I think everyone's played with Rixer at some point. A lot of good players on this team, and I think these guys in management are the kind of guys who can get their guys to play the way they want to. I kind of see Ager a little bit like a Swagger, but with a little bit more bluntness than Bob would have with us, and that works with some players, and I think he so far he's been able to make it work there, and they're right back into contention again, and again, as long as none of these guys lose it one night and start trading half their team away, I think they're all going to be there, and this is going to be another division that we're going to watch all season long, and watch a lot of good competition, and we'll probably see them in Thursday night hockey as much as anybody else. And the Western Central, again, you picked a job, Vibes, but you picked a tough job. The same way, the same way that Dead Soul did last year. He did a hell of a job getting himself into the playoffs and playing well there, and giving Minnesota, I believe, was you guys played in the first round, right?
Yeah.
Iowa. I keep saying Minnesota.
Wildcat.
The Wild, and it's another tough task for Moose management to get themselves in the playoffs again this season. And all of the Western Central, if any of these teams want a chance, they've got to make some big changes or some big moves, or start getting real solid production from a few players in order to move up. And it could just be what happened to the Monsters last season that let some of these other teams in, but. If that doesn't happen again this year, you're going to have, like you said, 5, 6, maybe 7 teams contending for playoff spots in the end.
Yeah.
And another, I thought maybe the Western Pacific might be the tough one, but I think it's the Western Central this season.
I definitely think it is. And just getting back to Ager and Be Nice, if you've had the pleasure of dealing with them as a manager, you'll know that they're both into anal. Just in case anyone's ever.
Wow.
You should say that. I was going to actually mention about how difficult it could be to trade with those guys. So good luck in the season trading with them without losing.
Yeah, they both like anal, and they insist on no sort of lubrication or anything. They'll
try to bend you over, all right.
Yeah.
they don't necessarily do it in a nice way either, and somehow they still are able to do it from time to time. Good players and guys who know how to get it done in management. So it's going to be fun to watch them do.
Well,
the
thing is that they shake your hand at the same time while they do it. So it's just an awkward situation.
It shows some versatility there, I think. There were a couple of other topics I think we wanted to get on, and
Sibs, I got to ask real quick before we move on.
Sure.
I just got to ask.
Uh-oh.
What is it like to be management with Zeus? I have to ask because he's a character, and you know what? Before I got into management, I wasn't really a big fan, but I like him. He's a nice guy. He's all right. But I mean, what is it like being a manager with him? Because I don't want to give away any particulars, but I mean, after a loss, I feel like almost like after a loss or two, this guy's just like, blow it up. That's it. Kill everyone. Blow up the whole ship. Everyone goes. What is it like being a manager with him? Is he a little bit is he tough to deal with sometimes?
The funny thing is that he's the first one back into the chat after any kind of loss, including some big losses that we've had so far this year. He's the first one back in the group party to say, hey, guys, we just got to shake it off, move forward. The stuff happens. Let's just keep moving and keep working towards it. He doesn't come in yelling and screaming. He goes off on people in the shout box because he has a very low tolerance to stupidity, even lower than yours vibes. I think he really doesn't take kindly to fools, and so he'll go off in the shout box, but he is not like that to on a team. He's very supportive of his players. He's not going to say, "Hey, you know what? You're a shitbox. I'm going to trade your ass." He's just like, "Hey, he helps guys and he tries to get them motivated. And he tries to give them encouraging words when he can. But if he feels they're not going to fit in, he'll move them. He's not going to he doesn't fall in love with anybody. He just does what he has to do.
Because I can definitely respect that because I'm very similar in the same way where I'm. I may joke around and stuff on here, but I'm a very supportive person of my team, so I can respect that. I like that. That's okay.
I like Zeus. He and I have talked. We talked several times in the off season, not just about me joining his squad and being another AGM, but just to talk about the game, just to talk about the players. He and I have a lot of the same, concerns about the league, mostly about players and about maturity and about getting guys to do what you need to do. We've talked about the teams that were successful in season 4, and we talked about we know that the Stockton and Wild and the Senators and the Bears and most of the teams that made the playoffs, we know that they got there because they have good management, they have good players, they knew how to manage it and how to get it done. And in the end, we know that the teams that did the most and were the most successful were the ones who understood how important chemistry is and that you can't have the poison on your team. And I think he completely understands that, and I know probably a lot of guys out there think, he's the poison on the team. Yeah, he's not. It's just the opposite. He just likes to rile up people in the shout box. He likes to call them, all sorts of things, just to get them going. But he also truly has a hatred for complete stupidity, and unfortunately, there's plenty of it in the shout box. So. I try not to go in there myself and look too often because the idiocy that goes on there is it's just bad, and that's where he winds up having his bigger issues.
Yeah,
but he's a good guy. I have no issue with him. Everybody was saying to me before the season started, "Are you nuts? What the hell are you doing going to be an AGM with him?" I said, "Look, I got along well with him. I've had no issues with him, and you know what? Everybody has a negative attitude. That's exactly what I want. I'm the guy who wants to run back into the building that's on fire because I want to see what it's like, and that's the way I am. I mean, when you're gonna sit there and play it safe and play, do all your scrub hunting and play with the guys that you know well and you like, Yeah, sometimes you got to play with the assholes and find out what they're like. And so I'm hoping someday to be on your team, Vibes. I think that'd be an interesting experience. But it's like, why go for the safe thing? Just go and play. Go and find out what these guys are like. And I got to tell you, I'm glad I did it because I like Greek a lot. I enjoy playing on his team and, would do it again. I don't know if I want to do management again. I still think it's still maybe a little bit too much for me to do with everything else that we're doing for LG. But I have no problem doing it now. And, I think he'll, I looked at what he did with Charlotte last season and I said, hey, that's a guy I want to play with because I want to see. And I want to see this guy who turned that team around and got them into a couple of upsets in the playoffs last year.
Yep.
Well, let's, I'm not sure what else we necessarily want to talk about with this show. We did want to talk a little bit about the show itself, and I'll have Vibes talk about that in a minute. We're going to start up Thursday Night Hockey next week, and we've got a nice one slated for the first week. It's, I believe, the Heat and the Barracuda are playing Thursday night, and so that ought to be a fun test for the Barracuda, and we'll see whether or not the Heat are still on the rise, and we're going to bring that game to you live next Thursday right here on the YouTube channel and LeagueGaming.com. And we're going to get Thursday Night Hockey going up again, and we may not do it every week the first half of the season, but I felt that was a good enough game to take a look at, so we'll get a chance to look at that game and see how these teams are faring. And you know what? Next week's show, we're going to be at that 3-week mark, and there's going to be a lot more to be talked about with these teams and how they're doing after 3 weeks. And I anticipate a lot more moves, Vibes. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be.
One of the things we did, I think we talked about, and I think we can just hit this general topic because I think it's an important one, and that is the fact that RA veterans aren't allowed to ECU. They're obviously not allowed to be called up, but they're not even allowed to be ECU'd. And I kind of understand what the league is thinking of here, but the idea of of somebody like this, somebody who's a veteran not being able to be used as an ECU, even in the regular season, I could see maybe not letting them be ECU in the playoffs. As management of AHL Vibes, how much does something like this handcuff a GM in this league?
I think it's pretty substantial to the level of which it handcuffs. I think that, especially this season, I think this was a terrible idea. I appreciate the league and everything, and I appreciate all the work that they do, but they seem to have a really, really thick, strong track record of making awful decisions. And this is a terrible decision. If they wanted to eventually, because I know that Xbox is the same, and I think they wanted to kind of try and get everything in line with each other, and that's all fine and good, but you picked one hell of a season to do it.
Yeah, it's pretty rough to do it during the summer season when we're already kind of struggling. I mean, this helps to touch on the subject with ECUs as well. We can maybe bring that up afterwards, but the fact that we can't use any of these veterans at all for any kind of ECUing, it hurts. There's it's already thin for the amateurs that are actually sitting on TC. There's not a lot of them. The majority of the TC is prospects there. So I mean, people like ourselves, the owners in the NHL, are even more handcuffed. We have to be exclusive to our rosters in the AHL, and maybe only have a few guys on TC that might be available. But it's just not really the best time to be doing that. I do understand why they did it, and I do understand the full-time call-up restriction. But for ECUing, that one I don't understand, especially for this time of year. And there's a lot of people going on vacation at different times. I mean, this is summer, and it's a weird time to pick for that, because I know that a lot of teams, including my own, have already been hurt by this kind of thing.
Again, of course, you want to stop the ability of a team to, for a guy to land on a team, to get traded to a team that he wants to play for, and have an effect on that team. And of course, there are always people trying to find ways around the system to get themselves on a better team, to get them to play with their buddies. And it's sad that people do that in a video game, but it happens, and there are people who apparently have nothing better to do with their lives, so they try to game a game, and so the league has to worry about that thing. So we understand that, but you also hate to not have that kind of talent be able to be called up when a fill-in is needed, and make the competition still level from the regular player that can't make it. And so it's I understand doing that, but you're losing some talent that could be playing in the AHL.
Yeah. Yeah, I just want to cut in real quick because I'm getting yelled at right now by Be Nice, and I just wanted to officially state that my anal comment before was all in good fun. I have no idea what he likes sexually. That's not what I'm here for, but him and I are good, and I'm just fooling around with both him and Agger. Myself and him, and myself and Agger are both good and cool, and I like both of the guys. And if they like a little bit of anal, whatever. Some people do, some people don't.
I'm sure he's just giving it back to you. He's
yelling at me. I don't want to get in trouble.
It's another New York guy, isn't he? So it's kind of understandable.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's not going to take any crap from you.
Yeah.
I think we're I think we're probably getting close to wrapping this one up. Is there anything else you guys wanted to hit upon before we've got a lot of things that we do want to talk about. We're going to talk about down the road some general topics like the summer season and trying to field teams, and what does it really mean about the last season in 17. Not a lot of guys are tired of the game, and so they're not playing because of that reason. But is that a good enough reason to be sitting out a whole season just to wait for a new game to come out? Some of the things that I know Dead Soul wanted to talk about was the combination of the NHL and the AHL teams. How they work together. What is there a correlation between seeing a stronger AHL team if the NHL team's doing well? So. There's a lot of things that we could talk about. We want to hit on some of that because, with Dead Soul and with Ryan as NHLers, we want to try and follow what's going on with some of the other teams, with some of the players that go up to the NHL from the AHL for the draft picks that were made and how they're doing. So we're going to get to some of that stuff as the season rolls on, but we wanted to hit more about the teams and a few of the players tonight. Just to give an early assessment of what we're seeing after 2 weeks. And, it's I think it all comes down to what we've said earlier, is that we're seeing a lot of the a lot of the familiar faces coming back this season and, helping to lead their teams again. And we're getting another strong Western Central coming up again for this season. But anything else you guys want to add? Anything else you want to talk about before we take off here?
Did you catch that little NHL 18 teaser trailer that they released? Real quick, little short one.
Yeah, I blinked in and I missed most of it. So I honestly didn't understand the point of putting that out because it really didn't show much.
Kind of stupid, right? Yeah. Like guy skates in. I don't know. He said a couple cool words, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah, we've put out better production than that, So
yeah, the video I put together was better than that, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, wasn't one of the things?
Go ahead. What? No, go ahead.
No, I was actually just going to segue into the topic of when the show might be a good time for people this summer to tune in.
Oh, right. We've totally forgot about that. Right, so myself and Sibs and Dead Soul and Ryan too, even though he's not here tonight, We would like to know from everybody, when would you guys rather this show be? Does Friday nights work better? Does Sunday afternoons work better? Or does Sunday, I guess, kind of evenings right before games? Are those kind of the three choices?
That's what I would say. I'm thinking most guys who are younger than us have a life on a Saturday night, so I'm assuming they're not sitting home listening to a podcast.
Right.
That's probably slightly worse than sitting home doing a podcast on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
Eating love while listening to this podcast.
Yeah. Listening to the replay on a Saturday night, you might as well just jump off a building at that point.
Well, I make love to myself every time I listen to Dead Soul. So
God.
Is it that smooth voice of his?
I'll stop talking.
It gets even smoother when he has a couple of whiskeys. So
yeah. No, but seriously, we kind of want to know, and we'd like to, because we had agreed on a Friday evening, kind of like we're doing right now, but we've had a little bit of issues, I guess you guys can say, as far as prep is concerned. Although at this point, we're so fucking good at this that we kind of just go and we do it, you know? So, but we've had a little bit of issues as far as getting together for prep work and things like that. So we thought about maybe moving it back to Sunday. So we kind of want to know from everyone what you think. And I think Dead Soul or one of these fine young gentlemen might be posting a poll or something up on the website, maybe. See if we want to move it or keep it the same or what we're doing.
Yeah, we can throw a poll up there and see what people have to say about it.
yeah, Scorum in the YouTube chat is saying something that I figure we probably would hear from people is that, try and do it sometime after the power rankings come out so we can talk about that. And it is something that we've discussed. It's kind of why we did it on Sundays. So we had, sometimes the power rankings can come out a little later in the afternoon on Saturday. So it doesn't give us a lot of time to really analyze it and hit the high notes on it for a show Saturday night. So that's kind of why we did Sunday, so that we had some time to do that and have some material to talk about on Sunday. So I get that. We tend to talk more about topics. We don't necessarily talk a lot about individual players. We talk about things that are going on in the league. We talk about teams in general. We will talk about some players. And we want to do more of that. I think we didn't do enough of that last season, but we, it's a good point. I think Scorum has a good point about trying to hit more about the individuals that are playing the game.
Yeah. I saw Pasta say before that he wants to see my face. He wanted me to turn my camera on. Listen, Pasta, let me explain something to you. I come home from work, okay? The very first thing I do is I basically take most of my clothes off. So right now I'm sitting here talking to you in my boxers. I don't know if that makes you feel uncomfortable or not, but that's pretty much what I do. And I'm way over my playing weight, so I got a little bit of man boobie going on right now. So unless you want to see a guy on a cam with man boobies, I don't think that you want me to put my camera on.
Don't lie. The one article of clothing that you do have at all times is that fedora, right? So, I mean, that's all we'd probably see on camera.
Yes, I'm sitting here in my
fedora.
boxers with the fedora on. Yep, that's pretty much what I look like right now.
Is that all?
The description.
is that all you're wearing?
Yeah,
is just your fedora?
And his birthday.
That would make for a hell of a picture.
Yeah. Instead of the naked cowboy, I'm the naked asshole with a fedora on.
Yeah, that's well, maybe you should put your camera on. It might Pasta might like that.
Hey, if you guys like man boobie, I'll do it. No problem.
Well, I put myself on camera just to do something a little bit different and to show off my cool LeagueGaming.com
I see that.
hat.
I like that. I like that. That's very nice.
It's the only one of its kind. It's the only one of its kind.
And if you guys were wondering what I look like, I just look like Terrence and Phillip, like all Canadians do.
Big flappy head.
And we fart all the time. So
hey, buddy,
where'd you get that hat from, Sid?
I had it made. I had it made.
Had it made. Really?
I had it made. Yeah.
Wow. That's cool. Good stuff.
And maybe we'll do a giveaway. Maybe I'll get a few more made.
You think they would embroider underwear like that? You think they would do my underwear
with the League Gaming logo? Is that what you want?
I don't know. Maybe
right
not.
on the crotch. That might be a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, that'd be weird.
There might not be enough room on yours. It's a big logo. It's at least
Yeah,
3
it's
inches.
a really big fucking logo. Let me tell you. It's like the broadside of a barn.
Thank you. Well, I do have a big head, so thank God for the adjustable hats. All right, we're talking about nonsense now, so I think it's probably time to go. But we got a
Yeah, I
lot
think
more.
we're finished. I think we were done a while ago.
Yeah, we'll talk about a lot of these other general topics, and if there's anything you want us to hit upon, just send us an email or send us a Discord message or on LG. You can hit us up there as well with any ideas that you'd like to see on the show. More than happy to explore some other options if you guys have things that you feel like we should touch upon. So feel free to.
Detzel was
message
talking
us.
a lot early on in the show, so I've been done for a really long time.
Okay, so I think that's a good time for us to now get the hell out of here.
Yeah, let's go.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how much of a genius Vibes is next week after week 3 finishes up, and we'll talk more about that when the time comes, and see if your theory holds up, buddy.
Yep, season starts this week, boys.
That's it for us tonight. AHLPSN this week. Thanks for joining us for Dead Soul Vibes. I'm T-Sib saying so long, and we will talk to you again next week.